All right. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. We are back, continuing with our look at the triennial Torah portion. This week, we're going to be looking at Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 17, Genesis chapter 17, and on this week's portion, we'll be talking about, along with other things, El Shaddai.
Oh, yeah.
El Shaddai. Right, so we're going to go ahead and jump right into this here. We're going to go ahead and pull up the chapter. We'll probably go ahead and just read through. We'll read through the chapter in its entirety here. There's a few things we want to go over. So we'll go ahead and read through the chapter and just go back and talk about it after the fact. So let me go ahead and pull up for us here the chapter for us so we can see it here. Let's see here. All right, if you could go ahead and read for us Genesis 17, starting with the first verse here.
And it says, and it came to be when Abram was 99 years old, that Yahweh appeared to Abram and said to him, I am El Shaddai. Walk before me and be perfect. And I give my covenant between me and you, and shall greatly increase you. And Abram fell on his face, and Elohim spoke with him, saying, as for me, look, my covenant is with you, and you shall become a father of many nations. And no longer is your name called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, because I shall make you a father of many nations, and I shall make you exceedingly fruitful, and make nations of you, and sovereigns shall come from you. And I shall establish my covenant between me and you, and your seed after you in your generations, for an everlasting covenant, to be Elohim to you and your seed after you. And I shall give to you and your seed after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, as an everlasting possession. And I shall be their Elohim. And Elohim said to Abraham, as for you, guard my covenant, you and your seed after you throughout their generations. This is my covenant which you guard between me and you, and your seed after you. Every male child among you is to be circumcised, and you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and you. And a son of 8 days is circumcised by you, every male child in your generations. He who is born in your house or bought with silver for any foreigner who is not of your seed. He who is born in your house and he who is bought with your silver has to be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. And an uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, his life shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. And Elohim said to Abraham, as for Sarai, your wife, do not call her name Sarai, for Sarah is her name. And I shall bless her, and also give you a son by her. And I shall bless her, and she shall become nations. Sovereigns of people are to be from her. And Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, is a child born to a man who is 100 years old? Or is Sarah, who is 90 years old, to bear a child? And Abraham said to Elohim, oh, let Ishmael live before you. And Elohim said, no, Sarah, your wife, is truly bearing a son to you, and you shall call his name Yitzhak. And I shall establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard you. See, I shall bless him, and shall make him fruitful, and greatly increase him. He is to bring forth 12 princes, and I shall make him a great nation. But my covenant I establish with Yitzhak, whom Sarah is to bear to you at this appointed time next year. And when he had ended speaking with him, Elohim went up from Abraham, and Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all those born in his house, and all those bought with his silver, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that same day, as Elohim told him. And Abraham was 99 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised that same day, and all the men of his house, born in the house or bought with silver from a foreigner, were circumcised with him.
All right. Very good. Okay, so let's look at this. Let's go back up. Lots of things here to discuss. If you go up to the top here, go all the way back up to verse number 1. We see that it gives us, of course, speaking about, first of all, gives us a reference point here in regards to Avram and his age. At this point, he's 99 years old. It says that Yahweh appeared to him. And then when he appeared to him, he had something to say. We already know that the Most High at this point has, spoken to Avram. He's shown himself to him various times, various ways. He's allowed for himself to be, Avram at this point knows, who he is. He knows him as, by his name. But we see here an interesting thing happens where he says to him, I am El Shaddai. I am, as in the English, it says God Almighty. I am El Shaddai. And then after that, he begins to give some instruction for Avram, and also he says what he's going to do. But when we look at this, it seems as if we have this kind of this precursor to all of this is the Most High saying something about himself, which, I think is kind of prepares Avram to hear what it is that he has to say, and also kind of almost as if it's a validation, right? He proves himself by giving him characteristics of himself. So I want to look at this El Shaddai. Again, when we look at this in the English, God Almighty, here God is El. El, which means mighty one. It means powerful. It means strong one. And so if we was to think about this just in terms of, what the English gives us, we kind of have Almighty in L already. When we have L, we have the idea of might, power, strength already. So is he giving us kind of this double word that he's expressing to us? Maybe he's saying that he's mighty. I am mighty, mighty. But I don't know. I think that there's more to this word here than what we get in the English. So I want to look at this a little bit. Let's go over here to, let me see here.
It just seems like whatever he was saying has that weight to it. Or else why would he introduce himself like that?
Well, yes. And also, I think that, again, like I said, the way that he's introducing himself is kind of a preparation for his, what he's asking of, not only what he's asking of Avram, but also what he says that he's going to do for him. He says for him to walk before me and be perfect, and then he says, I am going to make this covenant between you and the creature. But the way that he begins this all and says is that I am El Shaddai. And so we want to seek to know what that meant, what that possibly could have meant to Avram, because again, he's given this introduction to him, as this precursor to what he has to say. Grab my Bible from in there. When we look at other places, where, one of the most famous places, I guess, when we think about the way that the Most High speaks to people is, when you look at, the Ten Commandments, right? He gives Israel the Ten Commandments. And the first thing that he does is say that I am Yahweh, your Elohim. And then even here, we see the same kind of pattern where, not only is he saying I am Yahweh, your Elohim, but he's given kind of these credentials. Who brought you out of the land of Mizraim, out of the house of slavery, right? And then after that, he begins to go with the things that you should and should not be doing, right? And so the same thing we see over in Bereshit. He does this other places, but again, we want to look at this because the English, I think, hold on a second, my cursor got lost. There we go. Let's go back to Genesis here. There we go. Back to Genesis. All right, let's look at Shaddai. We know that because, again, we look in the English, in the King James, it says, King James says, unto him, I am the Almighty God. But when we look at the Hebrew, it's not laid out like this. It literally says, I Ani El Shaddai.
Mm-hmm.
The English, they kind of switched it around, and we have this various places in the scripture where in the text it'll give you Almighty God, but really in the Hebrew it's saying God Almighty. And so again, we look at El. Of course, we have the shortened form of Elohim, the singular form, which gives you strength, mighty. Interestingly enough, especially the Almighty, which is interesting because if we was to think of El to actually mean Almighty, if he's saying that his name is El Shaddai, in the English it really could say Almighty, Almighty, right? Where he's giving you the same thought two different ways. Power, strong, mighty one. And so it's interesting the way that we see here, because I feel like in the English it kind of diminishes the meaning, right? It's kind of limited to just leave it at Almighty, right? And that's what we see with the strong there. So with Shaddai, that's El, of course, that we just looked at, but when we look at Shaddai, the root here, Shaddad, to be burly, to be powerful, impregnable. Right? This impregnable. If something's impregnable, it can't be penetrated. Right? If there's some impregnable force, right? It can't be. You can't penetrate this. This covering is so strong that it's. That's kind of what we see here with Shaddad. But interestingly enough, when we look at this word, actually, when we look at this word here, Shaddad, if we was to take this dalet away, if we just looked at Shad there, now you have the aspect, another aspect, which actually is the breast, right? And so little Yosef knows about the breasts because it adds to him nourishment, right? For a while, it was the only nourishment that he ever had. This is the strength giver. So not only the holder of the strength, but it gives the strength, right? Nourishment. You need to be nourished in order to thrive and be, right? And so it's interesting when we look at here. Let's in fact look at. Let's look at. Oh, I should have pulled these. I should have made these pictures so that you can see.
You want the board?
These. Huh? No, the board doesn't help me here. I had these other lexicons, but I should have made pictures. Yeah, but if I go out of it, it'll make it too. Oh, wait a second. I can, I think. Hold on, let me see here. Hold on a second here. Yes, I can. All right, hold on one second. Let me see this here. Oh, yes, very good. Okay, this technology. is amazing. Okay, all right, very good. All right, let me put this over here. Yes. I forgot about my technology. All right, so as I was saying, we see over here Shaddai, most powerful, almighty. But we also see where it's giving you also this version here, the plural. Oh, wait a second. Coming from the singular, just shad, which of course is in fact the word that's translated as breast. Right? So if we think about the shad, you have the breast, right? And so if we see where Avram is kind of in this situation where he's heard from the Most High. The Most High has made this covenant with him. He's sending him forward. He hasn't. They've made an attempt already to kind of push forward this thing that the Most High has already spoken to him. And now the Most High is kind of moving him forward in a situation where it's almost as if he needs to encourage Avram in what he's getting ready to go into. And so he gives to him this aspect of himself that causes Avram to be able to understand another aspect, another characteristic of himself, the fact that he is a strength and nourishment provider. Understanding that Avram needs to be strengthened, he needs to be nourished. He's going through all of these things where time is going by and he has not yet seen the manifestation of what it is that the Most High has already said to him. And so the first thing he says to him is, I am El Shaddai. I am the mighty one. I am strength, and I'm also the provider of strength. And so it's interesting that, when we think about the fact that, the Most High, of course, has his one name, right? Yahweh, Yod-Heh, Wav-Heh, right? But he has also these many characteristic names, right? In other words, these names or titles that accentuate his various characteristics. And we see many places where people give names of places where the Most High has visited them in various places. But then we also see where the Most High actually gives this characteristic name for himself. And here we see a perfect example of this. I wanted to look at, let's go over to, let's see. Let's go over to, I believe it's, let me see here. Let's look at. Um. Let me see here. Hold on 1 second here. 20. Read for us verse 25.
25. 49:25 says, from the El of your Father who helps you, and by the Almighty who blesses you with blessings of the heavens from above, blessings of the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breasts and the womb.
Okay, very good. So again, we see over here, if we look, we see where it's talking about El of our Father who helps you by the Almighty. That's our word there, Shaddai. But also he uses this word over here, blessings of the breast and the womb, which is what we were seeing before with this shad, with this breast thing. And so it's interesting that, some people, when they look at Shaddai, and kind of taking away from the the feminine aspects of it, just to say that it just means almighty, and taking away from the idea of it having anything to do with the breast. I don't know why, because when we think about wisdom, the only word we have for wisdom is this, this feminine word. And so when you think about the Most High in creation, right, where you have the fact that the Most High created man and woman, right, and he took the woman from the man, and there was things that we look at in the woman and say that these are, feminine traits, right? And so we think about the fact that when the man and the woman come together perfectly in the Most High, both of them have characteristics within the man and the woman that are in the image of the Most High. And so when we have these things that we put these ideas about male and female, these are kind of human understandings, right? When we think about things from a spiritual perspective, the Most High, he's not a man or a woman, he's a spirit, right? But we can only think about things in the male and feminine kind of thoughts, because this is what we understand things, right? And so, but when we can understand the fact that the Most High, in fact, is the nourisher, he is the strength giver, he is the one that is going to be providing, he is the satisfier of his people, right? And so we see all of these thoughts inside of El Shaddai. And so it's interesting when we look at the fact that this is the way that the Most High decided, like this is what he decided that he was going to say that he was to Avram. He decided he was going to say to him that I am El Shaddai. I am your nourisher. I am your sustainer. This is the way that he decided that he was going to speak to him. And so the Most High, again, moving Avram forward into these unknown places, decides that he's going to give him a very powerful characteristic of himself that he felt was going to be that strengthening push that he needed to move forward. He wanted to cause for Avram to get a better understanding of who he was. So he says to him, my name is El Shaddai. I am El Shaddai. It's interesting when we look in a few places in Revelation where we see the way that those in the heavenlies refer to the Most High. Those that aren't, Paul talks about we look through glass darkly. Like we have a type of understanding of who the Most High is. But when Messiah returns and, we're changed to be like he is, we're going to know all of the things. But now we see through a glass darkly. But what about those that are actually in the heavens? What about those that are actually in the heavenlies and have the perfect understanding of who the Most High is? How is it that they think of the Most High? Well, Revelation, there's various places in Revelation that actually help us to know the answer to this question. So let's look over at Revelation 4. I'm starting at Revelation 4. There's many of them. We'll look at a few. Revelation 4, start reading at verse 5. Go down to verse 8.
And out of the throne came lightnings and thunders and voices. And 7 lamps of fire were burning before the throne, which are the 7 spirits of Elohim. And before the throne there was a sea of glass, like crystal. And in the midst of the throne and around the throne were 4 living creatures, covered with eyes in front and in back.
Okay, so these are living creatures that are living, flying around, dwelling where the throne of the Most High is, right? And then what happens in verse 7?
And the first living creature was like a lion, and the second living creature was like a calf, and the third living creature had a face like a man.
Yes, very interesting.
And the fourth living creature was like a flying eagle.
Wow.
And the 4 living creatures, each having 6 wings, were covered with eyes around and within, and they do not cease day or night, saying, set apart.
Hold on. These things is going around the throne, and all they do day is night. They don't ever stop saying what?
Set apart. Set apart.
Hold on. The scriptures is just funny. What do it say right there in the King James?
Down there. Holy, holy, holy. El Shaddai, or Yahweh, El Almighty, which was and is to come.
Okay, with our whole problem with translation, this could say Yahweh, it could say Adonai, but we know over here this says El Shaddai.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know if this said Adonai or if this was the name here Yahweh, but we know for a matter of fact over here this is El Shaddai.
Mm-hmm.
So these things that are flying around the throne, the only thing they do is say, holy, holy, holy Yahweh El Shaddai, who was, who is, and who is coming. On repeat. On a loop. Those who are in the very presence of the Most High are saying over and over again, El Shaddai. Revelation 11, 16, and 17. Let's look at that.
Revelation
11,
16.
16, and 17.
And the 24 elders sitting before Elohim on their thrones fell on their faces and worshipped Elohim.
Okay, wait a second. So we got these 24 elders that are sitting in the presence of Elohim on their little thrones. They got some little thrones, and they're sitting on their thrones in the presence of the Most High, worshiping the Most High. And then what they saying?
We give you thanks, O Yahweh El Shaddai, the one who is and who was and who is coming, because you have taken your power, your great power and reign.
They saying the same thing that those beasts, that those angel things was saying. El Shaddai, right? These ones who don't have the fogginess, the unsurety, the misunderstanding about who the Most High is. When they speak of the creator and sustainer of all things, they include this characteristic of the Most High, El Shaddai, the Almighty One, right? The sustainer of all things, the place where strength resides and is distributed to those that are his. Okay, let's also look at Africa. Do it. Get Revelation. There's a bunch of these, 16 and 14.
16 and 14. Here, all right.
Oh yeah, 14. Go ahead.
For they are spirits of demons doing signs, which go out to the sovereigns of the entire world to gather them to the battle of that great day of Yahweh the Almighty.
Okay, so hold on. But if you look over here, that's how the scriptures does it. The scriptures does it that way. But when you look over here, it gives you El Shaddai. So it's talking about the great day of El Shaddai. Right? This day when the wrath of the Most High is going to be exacted is referenced as the day of the great day of El Shaddai. All right, let's look at one more of these. There's like a whole bunch more, right? But let's look also at 19 and 15. Okay, go ahead.
19 and what, 15? 16. Okay. It says, and on his robe and on his thigh he has...
Hold on. 15.
Oh, 15. It says, and out of his mouth goes a sharp sword, that with it he should smite the nations, and he shall shepherd them with a rod of iron. And he treads the wine press of the fierceness and wrath of El Shaddai.
Okay, very good. So we see in all of these places where we're talking about the way that the Most High is being introduced, is being described without the the physical blinders that we have, right? When we have a full understanding of who the Most High is, and one of his most used characteristic names is El Shaddai. Okay, so again, thinking about the placement of, you know, of this, again, this is the way that the Most High is describing himself, as he's saying to Avram, walk before me and be blameless. The first thing that Avram has to be able to understand is that the one who's speaking is the Almighty. He is the one who is the great sustainer. He is the one who is the great strength giver. Not only is he El, not only is he strong and mighty, but he is the strength giver. He's the strength provider. Right? And this is the idea that we get from Shaddai. Not only are we dealing with one who is strong, he's the one that's strong is able to provide strength for those, that are seeking and receiving his benefits. And so it's interesting again when we look at how it is that the Most High is speaking to Avram here, because when we understand what's going on, looking beyond just what we see here in the English, the English don't really give you that. The English is giving you, okay, he's God Almighty, he's very strong and powerful. But when we understand what it's saying to us in the Hebrew, the one that's very strong and powerful is actually providing strength and power for you. Because now he's making a request of Avram, but when we understand him to be El Shaddai, he's also aiding in the request that he's making. And so when we look at, this really as an idea, we said this, various times. When we think about the Most High, the very first thing that we have to do when we think about who he is understanding, his characteristics. Right? Because when we can understand who he is, that's the only way we get to the place of, having that fear of him. And that's the only way we are able to come to being able to walk in his wisdom. Okay, and so again, when we see this, this is kind of the thought that we see over here. And just like we saw in Exodus chapter 20, the same thing's kind of true when we look at verses like, here, let me pull this verse up here in Deuteronomy 4. Here, read verse, let's see, was it 38, 39? Read verse 39 now.
39. And you shall know today and shall recall to your heart that Yahweh himself is Elohim in the heavens above and on the earth beneath. There is none else.
Okay, and then so again, we've read that verse, right? And then what's he say after this now?
40. And you shall guard his laws and his commands, which I command you today, so that it is well with you and with your children after you, and so that you prolong your days on the soil which Yahweh your Elohim is giving you for all time.
So he gives you this thing that he wants for you to do: guard the laws, keep his commands, right? But the first thing was that he did was cause for you, the hearer, to understand that he is the Elohim of everything. And so the same thing is true when we look over at what he does in Genesis chapter 17 to Avram, causing Avram to know that I am the great and mighty strength and nourishment provider. So walk walk before me. Therefore walk, what that literally says, walk before me, is to walk in my face.
Mhm.
What that's really saying is to be in the presence of the Most High, right? Dwell with me. I am El Shaddai. Dwell with me. Walk with me. Okay, so when we look at the request now, I am El Shaddai, walk before me. He's saying to walk before me, walk in my face, walk before my face, right? When you see that walk before me, that there is panim, which is the, let's see, walk before me, panim, which is the plural for face, right? And so before my face, which again is giving you the idea of being in the presence of the Most High, before his face, if you're facing the Most High, you're looking at him, he's looking at you, right? It's giving you this idea of a relationship, right? Panim. If when you talk to people, it's important to look the people that you're speaking to in their face, right? Sometimes you don't know if somebody is talking to you unless they're looking at you, right? Somebody could be talking, but they like looking off in the distance somewhere. Then you gotta be like, was you talking to me? Like, because there wasn't a connection that was made, right? But when you're facing someone, when you're looking someone in their face and speaking to them, right? There's a connection that's made.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we think about what the Most High is saying over here, when he says to walk before me, to walk in my face, he's saying to be joined to me, be kind of in this relationship with me, right? Let there be a connection between us so that we're able to see one another. Okay. And so this is kind of the idea of what he's saying. But first, again, he's saying I am El Shaddai, which is almost like he's given the reason to do it, right? I'm El Shaddai, walk before me. But he not only says to walk before me, but he says to be blameless.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at that word there, blameless. This version here says be perfect. When we look in the lexicon here, this word there is tamim, which is entire, right? Or to be whole. Let's see here. to be without spot, is to be undefiled, is to be upright, is to be full or complete. So when we think about this idea, like we think about perfection, perfectness, we think about, something that's, something that's perfect, something that's 100%, right? But this is not exactly what it is that, this idea is being expressed. Because when you think about it, when we look at the Torah, for one to be walking according to the Torah, um, he's not always going to be like uh, perfect, right?
Mhm.
Even within the Torah, there's what causes one to be perfect is when you deal with your imperfections in a correct way, right? Because you have to, if there's things that happen that cause you to be unclean, for instance, and so inside of your uncleanness, you have to deal with your uncleanness in a right way. And so when you do these things, right, that's you walking in perfectness. If we was to think about perfect the way we think about it, you wouldn't have those unclean moments, right? But again, that's not really the thought that exists there with that. So I think the better way to think about this is kind of whole or full or complete, or sound. Um, you know, look at some of these definitions that are given for tamim. One thing that's there is dealing with moral integrity, right? The way in which one lives is according to a particular code. In our case, of course, is it's a code given to us through the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
So again, when we think about the way that we operate, our perfectness is just lining ourselves up with the will of the Most High. Let's see here. What happens when we look at when we think about Messiah, we think about Messiah and who he is and what he does for us, because of the fact that we are kind of in this situation that we have actually been separated from the presence of the Most High, right? And so it's interesting that we see here with Avram where these instructions are given to him, where a relationship has to be established, reestablished, fortified.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we think about what it is that Messiah does for us, Messiah, bridges this gap, right? Where we in our flesh lack perfection, maturity, wholeness, entireness.
Mm-hmm.
We're able to look to what it is that Messiah provides for us to to give us what we need to be able to dwell with the Most High. let's look at some scriptures over here. Let's look at Leviticus 11:45. What's that say?
Leviticus 11:45. For I am Yahweh, who is bringing you up out of the land of Mitzrayim to be your Elohim, and you shall be set apart, for I am set apart.
Okay, so the Most High wants to be with his people. So he says to his people, I'm holy, so I need for you to be holy. I'm set apart, so I need for you to be set apart. Right? It's really the same thing that we're seeing over here with Avram in Genesis 17:1. I am El Shaddai, walk in my face, but in order to be able to walk in my face, you got to be blameless because I'm blameless, right? Let's look at Psalms 24. The book of Psalms 24. Read 1 through 5.
Psalms 24. The earth belongs to Yahweh, and all that fills it, the world and those who dwell in it. For he has founded it upon the seas, and upon the waters he does establish it.
Okay, when we look at this, it's interesting because it's kind of really the same thing. It gives us an idea, an understanding of who the Most High is. First, the earth belongs to Yahweh. He's the owner of it. He's the creator. He filled it. He dwells in it. The seas is founded by him. The waters was established by him. Right? This is really causing us really to have an understanding of El Shaddai.
Mm-hmm.
We look at these two verses, right?
Mm-hmm.
What you said over here? You said what? You said we represent his brand of holiness. That is right. And so if we sit up here and come out without, just like these people want to sit up here and say whatever they want to say on Twitter and Instagram, whenever the people who they endorse find out what they said, they separate themselves if they saying stuff that don't represent the brand. And so the Most High has a brand of holiness. And so those that represent his brand have to act a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we look over here in Psalms now, again, he's telling the psalmist, first thing he's saying is the Most High, the earth belongs to him.
Uh-huh.
Right? And then verse 3, what does it say?
Verse 3. Who does go up into the mountain of Yahweh, and who does stand in his set apart place? He who has innocent hands and a clean heart, who did not bring his life to naught and did not swear deceivingly. He receives a blessing from Yahweh and righteousness from the Elohim of his deliverance.
If you want to be able to receive a blessing from Yahweh, if you want to be able to walk in the righteousness of Elohim and experience his deliverance, you got to be like he is.
Yep.
And so the same thing is what we're seeing over here. We see that over here with again with Avram, the Most High saying, I'm El Shaddai, walk before my face and be blameless. You have to be able to walk in the characteristics of the Most High to be able to experience the Most High and all that he has to give you. And so when we look over here at the Psalms over here, as it's saying, first understanding who the Most High is, and then the next thing is how is it that we are able to experience the Most High, kind of in a relationship kind of way, and that is by walking in His character, which is pure and clean. And so, he's expressing this point to Avram, because not only has he told him about the covenant, previously, but now he's kind of he's at this point where he's reiterating for Avram the points here of the covenant. Now let's look at Isaiah. Start reading at the second verse 2. Read down to verse 7.
Above it stood Sepharim. Each one had 6 wings. With two he covered his face. With 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. And one cried to another and said,
"Oh, this is kind of like what we was looking at in
Revelation.
In Revelation, right? Keep on.
Set apart.
Holy, holy, he said, is Yahweh of hosts. Go ahead.
Yahweh of hosts. All the earth is filled with his esteem.
Mm-hmm.
And the posts of the door were shaken by the voice of him who cried out, and the voice and the house was filled with smoke. And I said, woe to me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the sovereign Yahweh of hosts.
Okay, so this person here has an understanding. He has an understanding of who he is, and he has an understanding of who the Most High is, and he has an understanding of when these two things come together, there could potentially be a problem, because he says, am a man of unclean lips. There's uncleanness within me, and the Most High being who he is, how am I, this person, going to be in the presence of his holiness without me, myself, being holy, right? He understands that for there to be a connection, relationship, for him to be able to dwell in the presence of the Most High, that he has to, something got to be done with him first, right? He's like, woe unto me. I'm unclean. How am I supposed to be here in this presence the way that I am? And keep on reading verse 6 and 7.
And one of the Sepharim flew to me, having in his hand a live coal, which he had taken from the tongs from the slaughter place. And he touched my mouth with it and said, see, this has touched your lips. Your crookedness is taken away and your sin is covered.
Okay, so with this thing, we see here with the holiness that came from the inner places of the heavenlies, when they come down and touch this man's lips, the holiness is imputed to him, right? And it said to touch his lip, and then your crookedness is taken away. This points us kind of to what we experience through the Ruach HaKodesh.
Yep.
When we, in our imperfect selves, direct our love and devotion and faith to Messiah, and we put our trust in Messiah and all that he has for us, we're able to receive righteousness from him. We're able to allow for our crookedness to be taken away and be covered by him. And so it's interesting when we think about this in light of what we saw happen with Avram and the Most High, because again, Avram is moving into this space and time where he is going to have to be strengthened to be able to move forward. And so the Most High is drawing Avram close to him. But when you draw close to the Most High, he's able to impart his characteristics onto you and strengthen you and provide you with strength.
Mm-hmm.
And so even though we see that Avram in his own by his own strength, he's unable to perform the task that the Most High has put before him, but he's able to, in fact, do the task that the Most High is placed before him when he's able to lean on the Most High and move forward in his promises.
Mm-hmm.
When he is able to walk in the face of the Almighty. Okay, let's keep on going. So let's drop down to, let's go back. First of all, let's go back to Bereshit. Read again for us. Read verses 4 and 5. Because we see over here, Most High, El Shaddai saying, I give my covenant between me and you. It's going to greatly increase you. Avram falls on his face. And it only says to him in verse 4 and 5 what he said.
As for me, look, my covenant is with you, and you shall become a father of my nation, of many nations. And no longer is your name called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, because I shall make you a father of many nations.
Okay, so we see over here where Avram, who is exalted father, who is high father, he has added to his name Ham, which is kind of the radical part of Hamun, which is a multitude. And so he becomes a father of a multitude, Avraham, the father of a multitude, is what that says. It's interesting when we look at Avraham, the father of a multitude, is going to be a father of multitude of nations.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting that his name, which literally means a father of a multitude, he became and he went from being this exalted father, Avram, to a father of a multitude. But then within what the Most High is saying about this multitude, he says that he's going to be a father of a multitude of nations, which is interesting, especially when you talk to these people who want for only those that are physically connected to Avram to be connected to Avram. When meanwhile, he said that the Most High himself said, well, his name is a father of a multitude, which you could say, well, that means that there's going to be his physical family line is going to be big. But you have that in his name. But what the Most High himself said is that he is going to be the father of a multitude because I shall make you a father of many goyim, nations. How come nobody talk about this? How come nobody talks about the fact that the Most High said that I'm going to make your seed be great, and your name is now going to be Abraham, which is a father of a multitude. Which, if he didn't say nothing else, then you could potentially make the argument that he only was referring to those that are going to come from him.
Yeah.
But if we hold on, let me see this a second. If we look at this word here, what's this word here? Key. Prepositional, indicating causal relations of all kinds, antecedent or consequent, by implication very widely used as a relative conjunction, conjugation, or adverb, often largely modified by other particles, annexed and, for as much, inasmuch, where, whereas, assured, doubtless, because is part of that, right? So this key right here is letting us know that basically the way that it's translated, he's being called this because a father of many nations have I made thee. Okay? And so I'm saying that we have to deal with this because this right here, what does it say? Israel is not many nations. It's one nation, Israel. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is it? Is Israel many nations or is it one nation? It's the nation of Israel. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying. What is it? This right here is definitely goyim. This word here that's translated as nations. And so the Most High changed his name because he's going to be the father of not only his own bloodline, but those that are connected to or attached to his bloodline. And when we look at what even happened right here, it goes along with that perfectly. All the people that was in his house that was part of his bloodline, which wasn't nobody at this point. Oh, Ishmael. And anybody who got bought with silver got the same treatment as him, who wasn't part of his bloodline, but was part of his house or his covering that was connected to him. So when we look at Abraham, the way it even started from the very beginning, nobody here was the promised seed, but all of them was part of the seed of Abraham in his house, and they all had it. They all had to get the sign of the covenant on them. He could have just said, "You circumcise yourself, and then whenever your seed come, make sure he gets circumcised." But the people that is with you and all that, they're not really part of your situation. Don't worry about circumcising them. Just wait whenever your real physical seed come, make sure that he gets circumcised. None of that is in there. None of that is in the Bible. Right? And so again, when we look over here at what he's literally saying to Amram is that the reason why his name is being changed goes beyond his physical connection to the people. Go ahead.
It just seems like we just live amongst people who are selfish. You know, they're not thinking about others.
Who are you talking about?
Anyone who wants to just be so exclusive with the promise of Abraham.
Well, I think that I'm not going to say that it's not selfishness, but it because it is, but it's because of brokenness. It's because of brokenness and pain and suffering. If somebody sits up here and slaps me around for my whole existence, and then I acquire a new existence, I still have a memory of my previous existence, and so I still kind of like if you was in a fight when you was a kid with your sibling, and your parents made y'all hug each other and say sorry and all of that. At that very moment when it's happening, there might be a still bit of the residual, like, you wait till mommy get out of this room. See what happens to you. Inside of you, right? Because you still want to get your get back. You still want your get back, even though outwardly, you know, there was a kind of this reconciliation thing. Now that'll dissipate over time, and then y'all be just like before. But we got this thing about us where, you know, we've experienced a particular treatment over these hundreds of years, and now, you know, we get this change inside of us, but there's things that have to be still removed that we not even cognizant of. I don't think there's a lot of it's interesting when you look at this dynamic with these people who, you know, they can have a thought of love and you know, in one breath, and in the same breath, you know, hate, and think that these things belong with one another. Meanwhile, there is a deliverance that hasn't taken place in those who, you know, have these kind of dueling things going on inside of each other. You can't have good and evil coming from the same tree. You know a tree by its fruit. And so if I'm giving you evil from a tree, that tells you what kind of tree it is. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, people have to, it's kind of like when you go to the doctor can only deal with the things that you talk to him about. If you don't talk to him about the things, he's not going to know what to deal with. He'll treat you with the things that you're aware of, unless he does some tests and finds out more things to be aware of. But if he can only deal with the things that you give him to deal with. And so you can't be delivered from something that's never been exposed. And so these people don't understand that there's something inside of them that needs to be exposed so that it could be cleansed. Yeah. You know, I just recently changed the faucet on my sink. And on top, you know, it gets cleaned whenever it gets cleaned. But as soon as you take that off of there, there's all kind of gook and nastiness underneath that you never see. But until that thing gets exposed, you can't clean it. And so these people out here is sitting up here and they got a sickness really inside of them that needs to be exposed so that they can be cleansed and they can be delivered from this foolishness that's causing them to not even see what this plainly says right here in Genesis 17 and 5. What did it say right here?
And no longer is your
No, I wasn't saying read that. Read that. Go ahead, read it. Read verse 5.
and no longer is your name called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, because I shall make you a father of many nations.
Okay, very good. That's what it says right here. I was reading the comment.
Oh,
It says there's definitely an exclusivity to choosing to walk before Yahweh, but the people that have been robbed and spoiled of everything will naturally have their guard up still. Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. But I'm saying that the people got their guard up because there's some gook that's hidden that needs to be exposed so that it could be cleansed. Yes, absolutely. Many of us have great love for Yahweh, but still need to be healed. Still need to be healed. They still need some of that deliverance. Yes, very good. Okay, so again, Avraham, who is the father of many nations. Let's look at this here. What's this say? In First John, read verse 5. Chapter 5. I did that wrong. It's chapter 5, verse 1. What's that say? Hold on, let me make it bigger. Go ahead.
everyone who believes that Yeshua is the Messiah has been born of Elohim. And everyone who loves the one bringing forth also loves the one having been born of him.
Okay, this says everyone who believes that Messiah, that Yeshua is the Messiah, has been born of Elohim. Everyone. Everyone has the opportunity to believe in Messiah and what he has done. And everyone who actually believes that based on something that has been given to them from the Most High.
Yep.
Okay, so let's go back over here to Genesis 17. And let's drop down here to verse 7.
And I shall establish my covenant between me and you and your seed after you in their generation, for an everlasting covenant to be Elohim to you and your seed after you.
He said this is an everlasting covenant. This is a covenant that lasts for Olam. This covenant is as long and it goes all the way out to the vanishing point. You can't see the end of this covenant. There might be an end to it, but it's unforeseeable. You can't see where it goes to. It's too far out. Oh, I forgot about this. Let's go over here to talking about the father of many nations. Let's look at Romans chapter 4. Romans 4.
Real quick.
Go ahead.
So, being that this covenant was established with, your great, however many.
A whole bunch of greats.
Yes, right? You now, living in the modern era, do you have a say in whether or not you should be following this covenant that was made by your ancestor? Now you disagree with the covenant, or y'all, that ain't right. Do people have a say?
Well, I think that Well, you have a say. I think that the people here, Avram was told what his part of the bargain was.
Mm-hmm.
He was told that I'm making this covenant with you. Now you're gonna sit up here and put this sign of the covenant on you. And there's a part that you are responsible to carry out. I think that with this people, there's many things at play, but one of the things that is that if you don't, first of all, if you don't understand that something is yours, then or it's for you, then you won't kind of be attached to it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that aspect of it, of not even knowing that there's supposed to be a connection to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore you're not living according to it because you think that it's somebody else's, which is a problem that we see. The other thing is that going beyond, the thing is that when we look at this covenant, it includes two parts. It includes the physical part where he says that I'm going to give you this land. I'm going to give your people this land, and this place is going to be your place.
Yep.
But there's also the other part that talks about, when it talks about the father of many nations, the way that is realized is through what happens through Messiah. And so that's a spiritual part. There's a spiritual aspect of it. And he's giving you both parts. There's a spiritual aspect and there's a physical aspect, but it's one covenant though. And so in order for the whole thing to be realized, it has to be both of those things. And so now we're dealing with people that we're able to deal with now in 2022. Once I was to tell somebody that they actually should be being connected to a particular covenant, the way that they attach themselves to the covenant is a spiritual way, no matter if you're blood Abraham or if you're Israel, if you're a Gentile. And so there's a spiritual connection that has to be made in order for you to be able to be connected to the covenant that we've all been separated from. The only way back to this thing is through Messiah. So when you look at these people who have in fact been disconnected from this covenant and don't know it, I think that the way that people kind of deal with these things is kind of from a physical standpoint only, and saying, well, this is your people, you need to be doing this, which is only like half true, like because yes, you need to be doing it, but you really got to be connected to Messiah. When we look back at here, before we go to Romans, we look back at Genesis chapter 17, when the Most High says to Avram to walk before me and be perfect, the way that we are able to walk before the Most High and be perfect is to be connected to Messiah. And so it's still the same thing, We still have to understand who the Most High is, understand that he's El Shaddai, and he still wants for us to walk before him. But there is a part that's in this little hyphen over here that we're not able to walk before him if if we're not connected to Messiah. And me just finding out what my physical heritage is don't do that. It don't connect me to Messiah. I can't walk before him. I can't be perfect outside of Messiah. And so, that's the most important part that we deal with over here. When we look at this, even with what we see with Avram, there was something that Avram needed to gain from the Almighty so that he was even able to walk before him and be perfect. And we'll see, even though all of this happened, that there was still a lack with Avram. Like even in this chapter, Avraham is told that the seed's gonna come through Sarah, and he's cracking up. Like, what you talking about? You trying to say that I'm supposed to have a baby with? First of all, I'm 100 years old. Second of all, I'm supposed to have this baby with this old lady over here?
She's beautiful.
What about Ishmael? Like you meant to say Ishmael. That's what you was really talking about. Like there's even though the Most High gives him all of this, he's still not able to think about it from a spiritual perspective and know that the Most High is going to miraculously cause for his word to be the case. And so when we think about, kind of our situation where we're dealing with these people who we would say is the actual seed of Abraham, there was a covenant that was made with your forefathers, but the only way that you're able to be connected to that thing that was created for you through your forefathers is through Messiah.
More.
Yeah.
Would you say that any of your sons could receive an inheritance from you if they're carnal? Like the inheritance that you have for them is a spiritual inheritance.
Well, it's like when you have like a will, right? That lines up all of your things that you give to your descendants or whatever.
Okay, it's fine.
And so when we think about this from that perspective, the way that we get our affairs in order, the way that we get our names written on this will is through our advocate, the lawyer, Messiah. Right? If we don't never go down to the law office and talk to the lawyer and get our name on the deed, we're not gonna get the inheritance. We could talk about how I grew up with my daddy my whole life, but if you never went through the legalities, they're gonna be dividing up the estate after the fact because it never the things wasn't never put in place. And so I'm saying that when we may technically, you might say technically, or we have a particular inheritance, but if you never went through the legal, you wasn't getting nothing from your dad until y'all went down to the thing. Even though y'all the only kids that he got. But if y'all didn't take care of the legalities, It didn't matter that you came out of him
I got
until
DNA proof.
you but you didn't have no legal proof. And I'm saying that we need to go through the legal process and channels, which is through Messiah. Because at the end of the day, it don't matter what you say, you got to have your paperwork in order. He said that the most I said talk about the book, the names that's written in the book of life. It's paperwork. It's paperwork involved in this situation. You could say who you think your daddy is, but I need some documentation. I need some proof, right? And so that's what we dealing with out here. So somebody could sit up here and say, "Oh, I'm the son of Abraham." When you get to the gates, they're gonna say, "Where your paperwork at?" Where your paperwork? Is you in the book or ain't you? You got to get in the book. You got to get that thing and it's notarized. That thing is made official.
Exactly.
We can't just go by off of some hearsay.
Or you might have been in the book.
Oh, so that dude turned the pencil over. Erase that.
All right, let's go over here. Let's look at this real quick. Let's look at. Let's go to Romans 4. And let's drop down to verse 11. Read for us over here at verse 11.
And he received the sign of circumcision, a seal of the righteousness of the belief while in uncircumcision, for him to be a father of all those believing through uncircumcision, for righteousness to be reckoned to them also.
Okay, speaking about legalities, because of the fact that Avram believed first, righteousness was imputed to him. And then after that, then he went after that and circumcised all of the people. But the first thing he did was believe first. And then he went ahead and did the thing. He took care of the legalities of it, the sign of it, which was the cutting off of that flesh. It was a sign of something that already had been done inside of him. Okay, keep on going.
And the father of circumcision to those who not only are of the circumcision, but who also walk in the steps of the belief which our father Abraham had in uncircumcision.
Okay, now we're not going to look at this as to say, well, this is some type of justification for us to not, we're not of, you're not of faith if you going through the legalities of the situation. That's not what it's talking about. It's just dealing with the fact that you can't put the cart necessarily before the horse. Faith comes first, and then from that faith that happens inside of you come about actions after the fact. That's the same thing we're talking about when we deal with the idea of, we should have a particular way about us if we say that we're connected to the Most High in the first place. And so it's an internal thing first that happens first, and then the manifestation of that internal thing, is of course the external. Okay, keep on going. Verse 13.
For the promise that he should be the heir of the world was not to Abraham or to his seed through the Torah, but through the righteousness of belief. For of those who are of the Torah or heirs, belief, I believe, has been made useless, and the promise has been nullified. For the Torah works out wrath, for where there is no Torah, there is no transgression. On account of this, it is of belief that it be according to favor, for the promise to be made certain to all the seed, not only to those who are of the Torah, but also to those who are of the belief of Abraham, who is father of us all. As it is written, I have made you a father of many nations, in the presence of him whom he believed, even Elohim, who gives life to the dead and calls that which does not exist as existing, who against all expectation did believe in expectation, so that he should become father of many nations, according to what was said, so shall your seed be.
Okay, very good. So the emphasis here is on faith, but understanding that faith is something that is not intangible, right? Faith is something that is tangible. I can't say that I love you and then treat you badly, right? Because that's a lie, right? Those two things aren't congruent with one another. And so when we think about the idea of, but in the same regard, I can be doing things externally and internally. I could be, so in other words, I can do nice things for someone that I hate, right? I can do something good for you and hate you simultaneously. So the most important part is to have the internal aspect be in order. And then whatever happens externally is only going to be a manifestation of what's going on the inside. And so when we think about this idea of, how it talks about for those who are of the Torah or heirs, belief, faith has been made useless and the promise has been nullified, because it's never been about doing things, and it's always been about having an actual relationship with the Most High, which is the most important thing. And which, again, when you think about the way that Avram was spoken to in the beginning, when you think about the idea of walking before my face, is that aspect of having that real connection. Because he could have just said, I am El Shaddai, be blameless. But before he said to be blameless, he said to walk before me. So in other words, we're talking about that internal connection that is to be had and necessary to even be at the place of walking in maturity, in tamim-ness. All right, let's go back over to chapter here. Let's drop down to we mentioned it over here, verse 15. We talked about this some on last week, because Abraham, when they did the whole thing with Hagar, because she was never mentioned, so the Most High had to be a little more specific for them both here and say that this promise that was previously made actually comes through Sarah. Abraham, he thought that was funny. He fell on his face and laughed. It said, like it was so funny. He couldn't even stand up anymore. It was so funny. I don't believe I ever been laughed that hard where something was so funny that I couldn't even stand up, and he passed out almost. Like he's left, all the strength went away from his legs when he heard that. Where he fell all the way down and laughed. How in the world is a child gonna be born to somebody who's 100 years old? And Sarah. She gonna he couldn't even understand the idea of her bearing a child at this point in the game. Oh, just let Ishmael live before you. Like you don't gotta even talk about all of this stuff what you saying. Just let it be the one he's already here. He's right over there.
But you can't blame him.
This now, yeah. What else? Like I'm old.
Yeah.
She's old. He's right here.
Yeah.
You're already here.
It's not normal.
Yeah. What are we talking about?
Yeah. That's why he cracked up. Like,
I mean, he cracked
he's like,
up.
who do that? But during this time, this is Abraham. What was they living to here?
No, but the years got knocked back after the.
I know after so many generations, but what was they living like? Is this after?
Yeah, they
about
said
160 around this time.
No, they said it was gonna be 125 back in early parts of Genesis. Like, so the things was knocked back at this point, where he's at the end of his rope at this point, and she definitely is. Looking at her is like he's just like, this is like she's on the back half of the things.
Way back here.
This past the half.
Because even today, the normal for a woman to have a successful pregnancy without issues commonly the first third of her life.
Yeah.
So
she on the back third.
Yeah. To the first third is dangerous. You know?
Mm-hmm. And so he's looking at that and he's like, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
But what the Most High is calling for from Abraham is faith, and is definitely showing you a picture of walking in faith, because the thing that he says going to happen is something that just wouldn't regularly happen.
Right.
Like it's miraculous.
Right.
It's a miracle. It can't be. You can't look to nobody else but the Most High when this thing comes to pass.
Mm-hmm.
Like they could have other things to say if you was to just look at Ishmael. You know, that was Sarah came up with that, right? Abraham just kind of what goes along with it. Nobody even talked to the Most High when they did it, and so you can have all of these other things to be said. But if it comes through Sarah, we know that is straight from the Most High. I just thought that was funny, you know, when you look at that, because it says that he fell to his face and laughs, which I guess is the reason why we have Yitzchak, right? Because his name literally means laughter. And it's funny because you think about the fact that he laughs, later Sarah laughs. His name means laughter, but at the end of the day, I guess it's the Most High that laughs. He gets the last laugh.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's see here. What else do we have? So also, when you look down as it deals with Ishmael, our Abraham is, also concerned with this other uh, son that he's had. Well, we had this son. Like, I mean, we're just gonna forget that he even like exists. Like,
Hold on. I'm sorry.
yeah.
But Abraham died at 175.
Yeah, I guess he lived.
So I was
he
right.
lived
I
a
said
long-
about 160.
he
So
lived a-
I was making sure.
He
I was
lived
like,
a
this.
long life, but people wasn't living like hundreds
Right.
years. Like
Yeah. We dwindled down, but I was
But he got
just making
cut
sure.
back.
Yeah.
He was only just given like he lived. He still lived to an old age,
Mhm.
but the average was not all the way down from where it was.
It like progressively went down.
Well, I'm saying that I guess you could say that looking at how old he was, but I think it's like chapter 8 where
Yeah, he said he was going to shorten the days of man.
Yeah.
Because I know Noah's age, 900 to 1,000, around that age, and then the oldest man, who was that? Methuselah, the oldest one, but yeah, so roughly 1,000. But I was just saying, like through the generations, it like decreased. It didn't seem like it was like I pronounced this. This was the ceiling. Then you could see like, oh, this person died at this age.
Well, I mean, but it's a big drop off.
It is, yeah, because people nobody was like down like at 400, 500. You didn't see that. yeah. But I thought it was like I knew it was around 160 though for that generation.
Yeah, because I mean, he does a lot even before even before Isaac is even born. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I'm just saying that when we look at Ishmael, where he's still is added. It says, and I shall establish my covenant with him for everlasting covenant. That's Yitzhak. But Ishmael, he also, it says, will be blessed and made fruitful and greatly increase. And it says he'll have 12 princes. It's like really specific. And he'll be a great nation. So I think that was interesting that the Most High still kind of, he gives them this. It wasn't like you have this, at least here anyway, where it's almost like he don't like. It's not like he goes away with nothing, right? He still gets a blessing on himself, on his seed to come. They'll be great. But just to know that they're not the promised seed. All right, so kind of lastly, just looking at how at least when we get to this point where the Most High is not just saying what will happen, but we have more specifics in terms of the Most High saying it's going to be from Sarah. She's going to bear this time next year. So she's getting ready to be pregnant pretty soon. 3 months at least, right? If she's not pregnant yet, at least it'll be real soon.
Mm-hmm.
So I think all of these things that we see, even from the beginning all the way till the end of the chapter, we see that the Most High is preparing Avram for what it is that he said he was going to do. By specifically saying that it's coming from Sarah by specifically saying that it's going to be by this time next year, by bringing out the idea that the Most High is in fact the strength giver and the supplier of nourishment. We look at all of these things. I think that it shows us that the Most High has, these blessings that He wants to provide for his people. He has these things that He requires of us, but when we continue to connect ourselves and be connected to the Most High, it's not as if He's just, having these things that He's calling for us to be doing without giving us a way to meet the requirements that He's making for us. And I think that's one of the most important things that we see when we look at this chapter, because it's almost like at first He's given Avram, who's now Abraham, this this kind of a unforeseeable thing to look forward to, but as time goes on, it's making it more realistic in his mind now, as time goes on, even within the chapter, because it went from just kind of this non-specific, your seed is going to be great, where now your seed from Sarah is going to be great, and by this time next year, she's going to be bearing a child. And so when you have kind of this finish line, I guess it kind of makes things be more acceptable, as opposed to just just being kind of this non-specific thing, that's in the unforeseeable future. And so I just thought that it was interesting that we see that the Most High doesn't continue with kind of this this kind of obscure hope that's that's non-specific, but he causes it to be more palatable in Abraham's mind, so that he's able to even accept this thing easier, even though it's still kind of a far-fetched thing to him, but it's not as far, as it was in the beginning for him. Let's see here.
Quick question: how old do you think Ishmael's mother was?
It don't really say, but it just seems like she was normal.
Who was normal?
Hagar. It seems like she was, like, to me,
She's young.
she was just this young little thing that was over there that was, oh, okay, yeah.
Makes sense.
I'll just have one with her then. Okay, cool. It's like,
No problem.
like, it wasn't like, it don't say, but it seems like she was of age, or she was ready for it.
She's probably in her 20s. No, I'm just kidding. We can't put ages on.
I don't know.
That's totally made up.
But I think that she probably was, though. She was probably
in her childbearing ages.
Yes. Where it just wasn't even a thought. Like, she was like, "Oh, let's just."
The old man, like,
Oh no, because he was,
he was strong, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Don't say he was It talk about how strong.
Yeah, he just was out. He just was out and fighting with
So I
with his
guess
people.
him falling on his face and laughing hysterically was him laughing because it's Sarah.
Yeah, yeah, because of how like, huh?
So he wasn't doubting himself. He was doubting.
Well, it was both though. It was both
It was both.
because that's what he said, right? He said, what did he say? What verse
He
is
said
that?
me being an old man.
Yeah, he said both things. He said, will a child be born to a man 100 years old? And will Sarah, who's 90 years old, bear a child?
But then he obviously was able to be a father of many nations because then he had more kids with concubines after Sarah even died. And he sent them away, so they wasn't able to interfere with the inheritance. So
Yeah, we don't know when Keturah came on the scene, but she talked about after the fact. You don't know where she was at in the situation. You don't even hear nothing about her until
after the fact.
after the fact. So somewhere along the lines, maybe there was like, what about this one over here?
Oh my God.
Yeah, they're just following the main storyline.
Yeah,
Like,
we don't even know how that even enters into the situation. But I'm just saying that it seems like he was looking at himself as being old and Sarah. So both of those things combined was funny to him. He thought it was both funny. But like I said, I think that the thing to gain from looking at this chapter is understand that the Most High may in fact give us tasks to perform, and even though those things that he's saying that we're to be doing or are capable of doing, he's going to make a way for those things to be able to be done if we continue in faith in him and knowing that he is a way maker. he provides a way, especially for those things which he declares in your life, because you're not able to see how something is going to play out. You know, at very least, we know that he knew that the Most High was speaking to him. And so, you know, if you get to the place where you know that the Most High said this is going to happen for you, now the only thing that's left to do is just to prepare for what he said is going to happen, because you might not know how it's going to play out, but if he said it, he's going to do it. And so, you know, we just have to be able to allow for our, you know, not allow for our carnal mind to get in the way of, you know, where the Spirit is trying to lead us, because, you know, this really could have been a huge mistake that was made by Avram by even bringing Hagar into the situation. But even after the fact, we see that the Most High kind of, you know, he helps the situation by giving Avram more information and almost confirmation as to you know, what he's going to be doing for Abraham moving forward. Okay, so well, I guess, is there any more questions, comments before we are done over here?
We're gonna talk about I just when talking about circumcision, how this circumcision is different from the circumcisions that go forward from here.
What you mean? You talking about Abraham's circumcision,
Yeah.
particularly?
Well, Abraham and even Ishmael.
Well,
Because
yeah,
they're like grown.
right.
13. How old is he? 13 years old.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine just getting circumcised.
Yeah, Abraham was a fully grown man.
Mhm.
And so when we see, like, I think that's interesting because when you think about circumcision, it's something that, as far as the individual is concerned, is something that don't include you. It includes your parents. So it's your parents' obligation for you to be circumcised. It don't have nothing to do with you doing it your own self. And so somebody don't circumcise themselves, they are in fact circumcised. So when you think about the first circumcision, I don't know if Abraham, does it say he circumcised his own self? No, it just says that in the very same day Abraham was circumcised. I can't imagine what that would have been like for a grown person. I think that having seen I don't know why it is with babies, why we think that their threshold for pain is different from ours, probably because they can't
express it.
they can't talk about it. When my poor baby Joseph was circumcised, I swear he passed out 2 times whenever it was happening. I can't imagine that happening to a grown person, but at least whenever I seen it happening with Joseph, it was like I felt like he felt it. Like Hiskey it was so quick. The guy was just so like he went in there, did the thing. I mean, he cried, but as soon as the doctor gave him over to mommy, it was just he was just done. He cried a little bit. He started nursing, and then it was over. You know how they do at the end, but little Yossi, it just was like it was traumatic for me. And so imagine
He said he went limp.
Yeah, he was crying, just crying. I'm holding him, and then he literally he passed out. I swear my baby passed out twice. All that happened. It was terrible. And so thinking about what Abraham is going through, what even Ishmael's going through, or whoever was bought with silver was going through in that house. Like it's grown folks getting circumcised.
They're probably like, what in the world did he hear?
But when you think about, I think a thing to think about is the commitment to the situation. For that to be this sign that is given of this covenant that's given to Abraham, it's you're fully invested in this thing. And so I think that when you think about kind of what that means, for us, because when we think about the idea of our hearts being circumcised, this is something that goes on internally. It's something that happens to us. It's something that the Ruach HaKodesh is, works on. He says he's going to take away our stony heart and replace it with a heart of flesh. And so it's even still, when we think about the picture of someone being circumcised, when we think about what that spiritual circumcision is, you still have this idea of something happening to you. The same thing, even when you think about these grown people being circumcised, the perception of it being like a harder thing, I think, is also true when you think about grown people who've lived a life, and then now, there's this transition that I have to make now. It seems like it's a harder thing than dealing with someone who's a child and learned one way their whole life. Is it where you had a whole life, and then now, I got to do this. I got to do what?
People get set in their ways.
Yeah. And so I think you could also see that parallel with, the difference between like a baby who, when that thing happens to them, it's like there was never like a transition, because they just was always living that life, as opposed to somebody else who made, I said I was going to come and be with Abraham, but nobody said I was going to sit up there and have to get circumcised. But you have that level of commitment. And so, like, when you think about people who, full grown, they have all these thoughts about different things, and then now they find out about, the Most High, and you have to have this severing of sorts of things, and start over, just like a baby. You have to have this thing done to you as an adult that usually is supposed to happen to you when you're a baby.
And I mean, I think that's one reason that you even bury the foreskin, because you're supposed to be burying that old nature, And I think about our children that's growing up in the faith, how they are. It's being kind of they're being trained up in this way, as opposed to someone who comes out from, they don't know anything about this way.
Yeah, and still need to be trained. This is an interesting parallel, because this thing that's supposed to happen to you as a baby only happens when you're full grown. But there's still that process that one has to go through, coming into the faith, where it's almost like, you start off as a baby, and you have to get, fed in small doses, and you have to be built up and strengthened, just like a child. It's interesting that we have this thing that is circumcision, that, kind of, when you think about it, it kind of gives you this picture of, our connection to the Most High, because the perfect, best case scenario is, raising one up from the beginning in that way. But when you don't have that, it's like you still got to start. It's like you start your life over again
Mhm.
and go all the way back to the beginning. What's it say here? Circumcision should be a baby's first pain. Men have felt pain in life and remember it, so it takes a heart to do it. It definitely takes a heart to do it. I'm glad we live in a culture that that just does it automatically, where you don't got to go back and do it as a grown person. I don't even want to think about that anymore.
Yeah, I'm happy that not having any more babies. Y'all willing?
All right. So that being said, do I have anything else to add?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So on that note, this will be done for now. Y'all willing, we'll be back on next Shabbat to continue with our look at Genesis. Still be talking about Abraham some more. Till then, say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.